Hi everybody, welcome to this webinar from TextHelp. Today, this is our second in the remote learning webinar series, and we're talking about teaching writing remotely. Don't try and say that too many times quickly. And so Greg and I are presenting today. My name's Fiona and I'm the Learning and Teaching Specialist at TextHelp. And Greg, you can introduce yourself.
Hi Fiona, I'm Greg and I'm the EdTech Manager here at TextHelp. I'm the one on the left, and Fiona, you're the one on the right there. And it looks just like us, doesn't it? It's
Oh,
just
absolutely. Yep,
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah.
I love Bitmojis. Oh, all right, well, we'll keep going. Our role is to make sure that everyone gets the most out of their software. And so today we're going to be talking about writing, as I said. Just a little bit of housekeeping to get us started. All the resources that we talk about today, you will receive via an email. Perhaps first the recording and then later on the resources to access from all of the webinars that we're sharing this week later on in the week. And to let you know that you're in listen only mode today, and that if you have any questions, you can type those into the question pane in your GoToWebinar control panel. Hopefully you won't have trouble with your sound, but if you do, 2 tips just when we're getting started, because it can sometimes deteriorate because of the your Wi-Fi at your end. So check your headphones first, obviously, and then if you're not having any luck, log out and log back in again. Or if it's too much of a struggle, know that you'll get the recording and you'll be able to watch it later on. But most people who logged out and logged back in again, there was a couple yesterday, had no trouble once they'd done that. So remember to type your questions if you have any in the question box, and we'll do our best to answer them. So welcome to our second one on remote learning, and we know that you guys have faced some really big challenges over the last few months, and it's been really difficult as you've navigated really well under such a short time frame the emergency remote learning that we've all been thinking about and talking about that never existed at the start of 2020. And so I just wanted to check in first and see how you are. And so today it's on a scale of movies. So if you can find that question box in your GoToWebinar control panel and just type in the number about how you're feeling today in terms of remote learning, just you in general, whatever it may be. I'm today actually perhaps not as good as I was yesterday. I'm feeling a bit 4. I'm on the road. It's going to be a long week this week. We've got a lot to do. What about you, Greg? How are you feeling?
I don't know. I think I'm number 2, and probably number 7. I wish I was number 5 or 6, but maybe I need some more coffee to become number 5 or 6. But yeah. And I know, Fiona, talking to teachers in schools, I think they're a combination of all that. I'm watching people put their numbers in, Fiona. There's lots of 7s. There's someone who's a 4 and an 8. My goodness,
Yeah.
that they do. That, I think you need a coffee, Tammy. Yeah.
We understand though. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a combat and you know, some parts, to be honest, at the start of the day and the end of the day and anywhere in between, I could be a number of these too. I wish I was feeling like number 5, but I think if I was going to be a superhero, it would be more like Captain America number 6. But look, we know that you're all coming from different places in your journey on remote learning, and hopefully what we share with you today will be beneficial to keep you going. So thank you for joining in, that little bit of a check-in to see how you all are. And let's get going with the presentation. So we're talking about writing, and I've kind of put it this way because we know that you guys are in various stages of coming back to school, with some students at school, depending on where you are in Australia or New Zealand. but we're going to be talking about writing online, and obviously with a slant towards remote learning as well. So let's have a think about what that might look like. And we know that writing is a difficult thing for many students to do often, but one of the things that they're really missing when they're doing writing remotely is the opportunities to check in with someone who cares about their writing, I guess, frequently. So if I'm not feeling confident about writing, I might have, you know, someone who's there to keep giving me motivation, supporting me, checking in during my writing process, keeping me on track, helping me with my organizing my thoughts. And so I may have less support than I do when I'm at school. And the other thing, of course, when we're thinking about writing online is making sure that students have multiple ways that they can write, and, you know, not just the keyboard. And so there are a couple of the things that we'll be talking about today. We know that writing is the most academically challenging task that students will undertake, and that's from some work that John Hattie did in 2013. That's where that quote comes from. And we know that I know with so many of the students that I've taught, helping them organize their thoughts, whether it be the organization, whether it be the actual physical task of writing or typing. There's so many different points in the writing process where students can get just that little bit stuck and need support. For some students, writing online will be a choice and a preference. For others, it's something that they definitely need. So let's have a look at writing from the perspective of, obviously, the task that we're talking about is writing. And there are a whole range of tools that we can use to support students. But one of the things I think we need to consider is to make sure that we still provide students with flexibility with the range of ways that they can do their writing, if we can do that remotely and online. So there's a whole lot of technology, and I just want to talk about technology generally in this first little part, that will support students to do their writing online. Probably the most obvious one, and you're all going to perhaps say, oh, but you know, I think about text to speech as a reading tool, is actually text to speech as a writing tool, because it's a really effective proofreading or editing tool. By hearing that text read aloud, it can really support students to hear their errors, to know where they've got to put in perhaps some punctuation, and look at things really carefully. So it actually is a really useful editing tool. We've got voice typing. Voice typing now has gone from when I being the old lady that I am, when I first started with voice typing, you know, back, I think it was around 2006, 2008, something like that. And sort of really began to understand the power of it. It was, you know, it was something that really only a very select group of people do, but now it's available on all devices. It's a really commonplace tool that people are using all the time as a personal preference on their phones, to find out information in their home with all the different tech tools that we have. So it's become such a much more of a mainstream tool. Word prediction is something that allows students to type, well, anyone to type more quickly and with less errors, and something that we know is a really popular tool that's well used in our suite of tools. And then, of course, there's dictionaries online to support students as they're doing their writing with their word choice, and support that they've got the right word, or the context is right for that word in that spot. Organizational tools. So before we even get to the actual writing, gathering up the information, pulling it all together, sorting it so that it's into a more cohesive sort of system ready to do some writing. And then, you know, obviously spelling and grammar checks, which have come a really long way as well in the last few years. So there's lots of different types of technology that we can use. And often Many tools provide one or two of these, but I guess one of the things that I really like about Read and Write is its capacity, and you can see I've got the Google Chrome toolbar on your screen, is that it's got all of these tools built into it so that it's kind of like a one-stop shop. And the other thing, I'm going to demonstrate using Read and Write for Google Chrome today, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that it works while I'll be showing you in Google Docs and in the G Suite. It definitely works. The same toolbar works across the Office suite of tools, in Office 365, and any of the documents, and Microsoft Online, and any of those documents that you've got, Word Online that you've got stored in OneDrive. So the PDF reader and the Read and Write for Google Chrome toolbar all work in there as well. So let's take a bit of a look at Read and Write. And I'm going to show you some of those tools that we've been looking at. So this is my document for today. I was telling Greg before we got started that I've decided on a topic of tiny houses, and this comes from a Stage 5 STEM topic that NESA has adapted from the Australian curriculum. And something that's interesting for me living in inner city Sydney. So I thought, well, this could be an interesting thing to share with you. So you can see that I've already got my Read and Write toolbar up the top. How did I get that? I've installed my Read and Write for Google Chrome through the Google Chrome store, and it's up there in my extensions. And then I've also got my PDF reader, which I will use as well later. When I'm in the Google Docs or in Microsoft Word Online, it will stay docked at the top of my screen like this, so it's nice and easy for me to be able to use. And I've got the range of tools here that I can use. So let's have a little look at how I would use some word prediction if I'm going to be writing. So I've already started writing my response about why I would choose a tiny house. And now I'm going to add some more, and I'm going to do this using word prediction. So word prediction is this tool over here. I've turned that one on, and I've got it set up so that it follows my typing, and there's my range of lists. Now, at the moment, it doesn't actually know what I'm writing about. So it's got some generic suggestions, but you'll see as I start to type the types of suggestions that will come up for me and how they will become more specific. If I want to complete the word, I can click on the word. It will read the words aloud for me.
People. House.
So you get the idea of how it's going to support students as they're writing. They've got a range of choices.
Clowning. Cleaning.
And they can choose those. So that's our word prediction, and that's very quick and easy. I've seen lots of students. Greg, is there anything you wanted to share about word prediction? Is there any nice little story that you've got to tell us?
Well, as a writing tool, it's kind of giving the students the vocabulary there, but it's also predicting grammatically. So that's really,
yes.
that's giving grammatical support. The other thing, Fiona, is in terms for students, it reduces keystrokes. That's for some students for lots of reasons might find keyboarding difficult. So it's a good tool for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and a number of the students that I've worked with who perhaps need some reassurance while they're writing, it provides that as well. You know, yep, I'm on track, that I've spelt that word correctly. And so it's kind of almost confidence building for them to have that word prediction there for them. So
It is. If I just jump in again, it is, you know, there's some research out to indicate that students who use word prediction on a regular basis actually end up writing more often. They write with more words, and they write with a more mature vocabulary over time as well. So there's lots of good indication why word prediction is a good tool for students to access.
Yeah, and so I've done a bit more writing. I'm fairly happy with this, but if I'm looking at what Google's offering me, affordable, oh, I don't know, maybe there's something wrong with that. So I'm just going to check that that's the word that I actually wanted.
Adjective. That you have the financial means for low-cost housing and cost.
And you can see that both the dictionary and the picture dictionary provide me with, oh, okay, even though there's a line under there, yep, that's the word that I wanted. And if I go to, it's going to, and I can go through my document and I can check these words and make sure that they are the right ones. And if any of those play arrows will read that text out aloud. And then if I want the picture dictionary, I've got those as well. And if I was an English language learner, I could even use the translation tool to just double check that, because perhaps that's a more complex language that I'm using, that it's actually the right word that I wanted to use. So I've got a lot of tools here as I'm doing my writing to be able to confirm for me that I've made good choices with the text that I'm using.
And Fiona, you know, that translation tool in the Google Read and Write for Google Chrome version, you can choose Māori as one of the translation languages. So for our colleagues across the ditch in New Zealand, that's a great writing tool. So students can make sure that they're using the right word, and they can double check it in Māori if that's appropriate. So,
Absolutely.
sorry,
Yeah.
jumping in again.
Go right ahead, Greg. So I've done some voice typing. I've checked out some of my words with the dictionary. Sorry, I've done my word prediction. Now I could do some voice typing if I wanted to. And I might just do that on the end here. So to use my voice typing, I click on the talk and type. I'm going to unclick because I clicked too fast. And I can type my sentence in, but you can see how sensitive it is. It starts straight away. Living in tiny houses can be done without compromise, saving resources and help the environment. So I've got, it will use, if I speak clearly, I've got a microphone attached to, so at the moment, so I'm not just using my microphone on my computer, but I know many people do. But I would suggest that with a microphone gives you more success and better clarity for the computer to get used to your voice more quickly. So we've got all of these different ways to be able to do their writing. And did you want to add something in there, Greg?
No, I'm all good.
No, you're all good.
Yeah.
One of the things that we can do though, which is really nice, is we can personalize through these options over here. So we can have the choice of, with the word prediction, changing the number of results, and with things like my speech, which I'll get to in a minute, I can change the voice that's being read aloud as well. So I've got the ability to, with my word prediction, to say I want 10 results, or perhaps I don't need that many, I want 5 or 6. I've got the choice of whether it follows the cursor and whether I want it to actually predict ahead, which is what mine was doing and giving me those the grammatically correct choices. And then I can change the size of the sample text as well. So there's lots of ways that I can personalize my prediction and the tools that I'm using. So after I've finished my text, the other thing that I want to be able to do is use the check it tool. So I'm going to close off my voice typing now. The check it tool checks the spelling and grammar. Now we can already see that Google's given me some as well, but let's have a look and see what check it does. Check it provides a purple underline to some of the things that it thinks are not correct. I'm curious to see why it's chosen tiny. Okay, there are 3 successive sentences that begin with the same word. So that's really good feedback for a student to, so it's not just looking at the spelling, it's also looking at the way the sentences are structured. When I click on it, it gives me the choice, and I literally can click on that and it will change it for me, just like a normal spell check, I guess. In the Read and Write for Windows version, it's a little, you have 2, so you have the simple version like this, and you have a more detailed version as well. So you can personalize that as well. It's got your homophones and your confusable words. Got all sorts of errors there that it's picking up for me. But you can see that I also have the choice to ignore it if I think it's correct, what I've written, or I don't want to change it. So I can go through that and correct all of those, and I can choose to ignore that it's told me that I've started with 3 sentences. So once I've done my writing, I've completed all my spell check. I forgot to change that one. The next thing that I want to do is I want to listen to my text and I want to hear it being read back. So I'm going to turn off my spell check for now.
A tiny house is an
Now, one of the first things, and this will read this aloud for me, which I will do in just a minute, but you can see how many lines there are in that sentence. Now, what I actually did was take some of the full stops out so it would show you, because this is a great visual clue in the Read and Write text to speech. I can see from that yellow highlighting how long my sentences are, and whether it might be, just by looking at it, that might be too long already. And then, of course, I've got the ability to listen to it. So let's have a quick little listen.
affordable living space that you can build for yourself. Tiny houses are rent-free and free from mortgages and utility bills. A tiny home is the home that generates its own electricity and captures its own water. A tiny.
So if I was to put some punctuation in there, because you can see that I could hear that it was just so many different ideas being read over and over again. Let's see how it sounds now.
A tiny house is an affordable living space that you can build for yourself. Tiny houses are rent-free and free from mortgages and utility bills. A tiny home is the home that generates its own electricity and captures its own water. Living in a tiny home is all.
So hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea of just the range of tools, and the text-to-speech really does. I've worked very successfully with a large range of students using text-to-speech as an editing tool and giving them that opportunity. And to be honest, I use it quite a lot myself, because I'm one of those people that sometimes I just can't see the errors that I make. And so hearing them aloud, often my sentences can be very long, and I can hear that and do something about it. So I've got all of those tools on the Read and Write toolbar to support me to get my writing as close as I possibly can to the way that I would like it to be when I've got to actually hand it in. Now, the other thing that I could do is, if I need to take a break from my writing perhaps, or I want to share this with my teacher as a draft, but I need some ideas, is I could use the voice note. And the voice note allows you to record about a minute of me speaking, and it might be that I want to say that, so click on the microphone. I need to add a better definition of what a tiny house is. And it's going to insert it over on the right hand side. In a Word document, it will insert it as a comment online, and it will actually insert it into the document when you're using the desktop version of Word. And you can see there, now I can send this off. My teacher can listen to it. Teacher can provide me with feedback rather than writing. They can say perhaps they enjoyed that, or you need more information here, or whatever it is that they want to do to provide that feedback to my writing. And, if I wasn't sure about a part and I wanted to send it off, I could just put it in, Miss, what do you think about this? Do I need more information about that? Whatever it could be. And so even when I'm remotely working on my writing, I've got the ability to have some really quick, you know, send that off for some feedback. Teacher can provide me with some feedback back, and we can keep working on this. Other students, if it was a shared document, could be putting their input as well if we were working on it together. So Voice Note is a really lovely feedback tool. So
Fiona,
hopefully,
with the
sorry.
that's all right. Jump in again with the Word version. When you're using the Word version as on PC on a desktop or a laptop, it actually is, the recording length is there's no limit. You know, you just said it's only for a minute in Google, and that's because it's got to be stored online. the Word version there's no limit. The other thing I was going to say, cool thing in the Google version, it actually stores the recording for you though in your Google Drive, so you can actually
Yes.
have access to all the record. So the students and the teacher has access to their own recordings at some stage too. So yeah, very versatile tool.
It is a very versatile tool. To be honest, the more I use Voice Note, the more I like it. There's so many different things you can do with it without it appearing perhaps as a formal, you know, there's reflection, there's editing, there's drafting, there's all sorts of things that you can do just to help you remember what you were thinking at that time. You know, if you've got to go away from your writing, where you need to keep going. You know, you could even put in this information's from a particular number of sources, but I need to still get information from the whichever source that it may be. So, so that gives you an idea about writing in a Google Doc. What about a PDF? And I mean, we know there's lots of different types of writing. So I wanted to show you quickly what it would look like in a PDF. So I've actually opened up my worksheet, and students have got to complete this by obviously writing. Now, one of the things that we know that people are finding difficulty with at the moment is how to for students to share their work backwards and forwards, particularly in a PDF format. And the Read and Write PDF Reader is a great way to be able to do that. So how did I get here? I've got my PDF saved in my Google Drive, or it could be in my OneDrive. And I've just opened it up with my Read and Write for Google Chrome. And then it opens up for you just as you can see here. My internet's quite slow today. That's why I feel like a bit like I'm in the cooking show. This is the one I opened earlier. But anyway, you get the idea. So how am I going to write on this as a student? Because the lines are there. Do I have to print it off and then, you know, scan it back in? We've got a great range of tools. So we've got our dictionaries, we've got obviously the play buttons, those sorts of things. But if I want to write on this, there's a couple of really good tools. So one is the typewriter, and I click where I would like to write. I can make my text a little bit smaller. I can enlarge the box that I want to write on. And I can type. I can use my word prediction.
Thing. What thing is
That'll do. And I could also use my voice typing. So I'll turn off word prediction. The color went all over the container. So I've got a choice of doing lots of different ways that I can do my writing. I can still type it in there if I want to. I can change the color of my text, the size of my text. If I'm happy with that, I just click the tick and it sits there for me. Now, couple of things that we need to know is anyone who wants to see the annotations that I make on my PDF, they need to open it up with the Read and Write PDF Reader as well, and they will sit there. When they're sitting in your Google Drive or your OneDrive, you won't see the annotations until we actually open up the PDF Reader, and they'll be there for you, but you can definitely send them digitally. So the students got the ability to write on here. I've also got the ability to use my freehand drawing, because you can see that I actually had to it said add a single drop of food color and show what it looked like. So I've only got a keypad, but I could actually do a much better color in than this, but I can color in all of the water if that's what I wanted to do. I can also, if I'm not happy with that, remove it and have another go. If I've got a touch screen, of course, I can use my touch screen to color that in. So I've got the ability to complete this worksheet completely online, hand it in via whatever digital or remote learning tools, wherever that may be, whether it's via email, whether it's via Google Classroom, whether it's dropping it back into, you know, some sort of, whatever it may be, and it's already there for the teacher to open up and see the annotations. Now, if I wanted to write on this as the teacher to maybe offer some support, one of the things I could use is I could use the little push pin. And what it will do is, and I could put some sort of note here. And when I'm happy with that, it will just leave a little push pin, and the students know if they need more information, they can click on that push pin and that's where they'll get additional information from. So there's lots of nice things that we can do. A push pin also allows you to do exactly what a voice note did earlier, which is to type in a little comment over here as well. So I can type that in, I can use my voice, I can use whatever I like to do, both kind of ways. So that's giving you a quick idea of, and I'm doing a Greg today, I'm taking longer, so I apologize, Greg.
No.
That's
I'm
showing
learning
you
heaps.
writing, sorry?
I'm learning heaps. Keep going.
That's showing you how you'd be writing in a Google Doc, and this is showing you how students would do their writing, or you as a teacher would do some writing. And the really cool thing, if you're using Google Classroom and you're providing some scaffolding support for students, is this little button up the top here. I can actually save my annotations. I clicked the wrong one, sorry. There you go. So if I want to share my annotations with students, I click on that little down arrow, click on this, and it will actually save the PDF with all the annotations that I've made. And then I click on Share to Google Classroom, and I can share all of those additional supports with all of the students or just with some of the students who may need that additional information. So lots of really good support for students and teachers when we're looking at supporting writing using a PDF. All right.
Fiona, there was a couple of questions just about the PDF that to let everyone know that when you have read and write, you automatically can get access to the TextTop's PDF reader as well. So
Yes.
they come together. So it's not a separate thing you actually have to acquire. It's all part of the one package.
Absolutely. And you just need to make sure that you install both from the Google Chrome store. So that's why you have the two little icons in your extensions or applications bar, whichever way you like to look at it. Last little thing I want to quickly show you. So if I was doing some research about my tiny houses, I've got some information here, and one of the great tools, and this is a PDF as well, but it could be on the web, it could be a Google Doc or a Word doc, whatever it might be. I can use my highlighters to gather up that information. And it might be that I'm looking, I assign that for different colors. So for example, I'm looking for the definition of a tiny house, and I can pop that in there. And what else have we got? That might give me more information. And then it might be that I'm looking for some of the other information about tiny houses. So I'm going to assign that to a different color. I just love saying tiny houses, I think. That's just me. And then I'm gathering up all of my information and going to use this for my research. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to collect those highlights into a new Word document because I've gathered all the things that I want to collect from this document. So I click on the collecting highlights. It's going to ask me if I collect by position or by color. I'm going to collect by color because I've been sorting them by color. It'll open up in a new Google Doc and it will tell me where that information came from, and it will sort it so that it's sorted it for me. So there's a bit of organization going on for me. There's the information about where it came from down the bottom there. And if I wanted to use this information, I can actually highlight that text, clear off the highlights, and I can move ahead and use that text. So that gives you just a really quick look at the range of things that you can do when you're looking at writing with Read and Write, whether it be Google or Read and Write for Windows. So Greg, I'm going to go back to our presentation.
That's okay. And I'll take over. Just before you do that, there was a couple of questions, people that come through. Someone was asking about Read and Write on the iPad, Fiona, and that you can get access to Read and Write on an iPad as well. Yep, via
Absolutely. Yep. So
yep.
it's an application for your keyboard. So we actually do a webinar if you're interested in looking at it on the iPad, because like all things, Greg, isn't it? On the iPad, it's a little bit different. Nothing stays the same. So yes, we can definitely, Read and Write's definitely on the iPad.
Yep. I'm just grabbing the controls.
I noticed that. That's okay.
So you can see me okay? Great. That's good. And keep asking us questions, folks, and we'll try to answer them in the background. At the end, we're going to give you a whole bunch of resources and let you know what you'll get at the end of the webinar. Fiona's taken us through using Read and Write, showing us some of the ways we can support writing, particularly for students who are online and remote, and the kind of tools that can support the writing process. What I thought I might talk to you about is about writing assessment and about how we do that for students, particularly when students are online or they're remote. For us, for writing assessment, it's one of those things that we don't have really, we don't have a lot of structure around writing assessment. Writing assessment has been a fairly subjective process where an individual teacher will assess a piece of writing. They may be using a writing frame like a rubric to kind of help them kind of work out what that assessment looks like. But it's generally been a very one-off event, very much of a summative assessment process. Like it's like a blunt instrument when you think about it. It's just like a point in time, and the data that, if any data has been collected, like whatever the marking is, because it's been so subjective, we haven't been able to use it for any way to support us in looking globally about the students' writing. So there's a whole bunch of things about writing assessment that has been problematic. The other thing about that is that added to that is now we've kind of gone to this whole online environment. We've got this kind of tension, which doesn't need to be because we can use both, but the tension between synchronous, which is what we traditionally would do, that's face-to-face teaching in your classroom, but now we've got lots of students who tend to be more doing asynchronous, where with synchronous, it's in real time. You're having interactions with students in real time. You're actually teaching in real time. With asynchronous, a lot of the things that students are going to be doing remotely is actually not in real time. They're going to be doing it at their own pace, at their own time, and they'll have a lot more agency. And that becomes a problem for us, because how do we provide that assessment, particularly when we're giving them feedback face to face, and so this has been a dilemma for us. And so what at TechStop, we've been thinking about this even before this whole COVID-19 environment came up, and we had invested heavily in this kind of process, and we've come up with a new tool which some of you may not have seen before, called WriteQ. It's a writing assessment tool, and what it does, it provides a way that we can easily provide assessment, precise assessment for students writing and provide feedback for students. And so what I'm going to do is just show you how this works, and with a focus on the online environment. And so when I'll start with kind of the teacher perspective, and then I'll kind of talk about the student perspective. So from the teacher perspective, what the two things that I was thinking about for this was how RIQ can help streamline the digital workflow. I mean, all the students aren't handing in hard copies of work. Everything's going to be digitized. So how do you manage that? And how can you assess that and give feedback quickly when you're actually not in this synchronous environment anymore? And how can you do it when you may be trying to do it in the comfort of your pajamas, working from your home office? So I want to kind of talk a bit about that. At the same time, how you can use data to drive that support, because when you're doing synchronous instruction and you've got this face-to-face, you're observing many behaviors in your classroom. In an online environment, you might be using Zoom or Teams or Google Meet, but you're actually not doing the same thing. So you actually need to get some data, like good things, like it would be good to know time on task, how often the students are writing, the access to their writing and the information that can give you around their accuracy, the words they're using, etc. So RIQ can do these things for you. And what it does a couple of things. When a student provides an assessment task, shares it with a teacher, and this currently could be a Google Doc, and we're about to, in the next few weeks, have RIQ also for Microsoft Word. So it's in Google Docs and in Microsoft Word. When a student's writing a document and they share that document with you, RIQ will automatically score the document and score things like accuracy, spelling, punctuation, and grammar. It will also look at productivity, how many words, word count. It will look at maturity, the vocab maturity, what age is the student writing at in terms of vocab, and actually also how long on task and how long they've spent, their pace. At the same time, it also gives you the chance to embed some rubrics so you can actually do some of the qualitative assessment you want to do quickly and easily, where you can assess the students' writing quality and be consistent, because you're going to be using the same framework. So it's going to give you quick data, precise data. And at the same time, that data then you can use to track individual benchmarks and maybe even develop some norm sets for your classroom, and school and beyond. So it will help you track the progress of those students you actually are physically not in the room with. So let me kind of show you how this works as a teacher. So here is a document that my pretend student, Haywood, has written for me. Haywood has shared this Google Doc with me. Now, as I said, this is going to be also the case if Haywood was writing in a Microsoft Word document. He shares a document with me, and I've installed RIQ as an extension, and it sits up here in my extensions bar, and it's going to be also, when I do that, turn it on, it sits as a sidebar, and as I said, it'll be the same in Microsoft Word. So automatically I've turned it on, and I can actually quickly hit this show side errors, and automatically what it will do, it will actually show me all the errors that are occurring around spelling, punctuation, and grammar, if I want to just double check all those. But what I'm doing is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to show the sidebar. It opens up, and it automatically now has looked at the accuracy of Haywood's writing. It's looked at spelling errors, punctuation, grammar errors. It's giving me a word count. It's actually calculated the vocabulary maturity of Haywood's writing. So we're using a metric in the background that looks at the kind of vocab that he's writing with and what the age of that. So Haywood is in grade 5, but he's writing as a 7-year-old, and also time on task, which is 62 minutes. Not quite right, because this is my pretend student. So, so that's the data I've got straight away. I can go up here and select a rubric. So I want to go now and as well as getting this quantitative data, I want to go in and do some qualitative assessment of the quality of Haywood's writing. I can choose a rubric. So it comes better with 3 rubrics: a narrative rubric, an informative rubric, and an opinion rubric to help me with my writing scale. You can also actually put your own rubrics in, and I have actually embedded in my version of RIQ, I put in the NAPLAN rubrics for those people in Australia. I've gone to the NAPLAN website and got their rubric, so I can use that if I'm going to use that as a writing assessment, but I'm going to use the inbuilt narrative one. I go now, I'll continue to rubric, click on that, it will not, oh, there it goes. And so in the narrative rubric, there's 4 criteria. There's criteria around focus and setting, organization and plot, around narrative technique and language. And for each of those criteria, there are levels. And for this rubric, there are 4 levels: below grade level, approaching grade level, and above grade level. And so what I quickly do is click on that one that's appropriate to this piece of writing. Now, I would have done this manually, maybe with a printed rubric in front of me, and I would have worked out a marking scale, which I would have had to count up. RIQ, once I put this into RIQ, it does it all for me. So I'm going to say it's approaching grade level. If I want to know what that, if I want to remember what the criteria was for that level, I can click on the plus sign and it gives me more detail, but that's right, that's the one I want. So I'll just quickly go through and choose, I'll just say is at grade level for all these, just for the sake of this argument. And once I've gone through and quickly done that that rubric writing frame, I then go down to the bottom, go continue. What happens now is that RIQ automatically generates a whole bunch of data for me. It's generated a RIQ score, and that's the score based on the quantitative data. And the important thing about that score is it's a score for this student. So it's like a benchmark score. And what I want to see is I want to see that score increasing progressively as I'm supporting the student, because I want to be able to decrease the error rate, increase the word count, increase the vocabulary age, and increase the time that the student is spent writing. I can also, down here, I've got the rubric score. It's automatically generated the information from that rubric, and I can see, because I made that rubric out of 100, I can see that because he's approaching grade level, he's kind of come in at 50 out of 100. Up here, I can also enter a bit of data. Great story, Haywood. Check your punctuation. As an example, when that's all good, I press save. It's now saving that information, and it's scored it for me. If I want to then look at a bit more about Haywood and all the students in my class, it actually comes built in. All my data that I'm collecting goes into a dashboard. If I go up to the dashboard, here's a dashboard I've got made up just to show you guys what it looks like. So I've got this dashboard, all my students are there. If I'm using Google Classroom, I can import Google Classroom. If I'm not using Google Classroom, it's okay. I can put my students into classes. Here's a class, an EAL class, a year 6 class. I can see in this class I put in 5 students. I can see the average RIQ score across all 5 students. I can see the average word count for them, the average pace of writing for them, the vocabulary age and their accuracy. I can go deeper in to that class and I get each of my students in my class. And for each of those students, I can see their average data numbers for those kids. And then I can go even deeper. If I go into Anthony, I can see every piece of work that Anthony submitted to me. I can also see his average scores. It gives me little indicators there, and I can see where he's heading. The important thing for me is that I can see here on this graph that I can see Anthony's RIQ scores going up, which is what I want to see. I'm not concerned about just one point in time. I actually want to see his growth over time, and I want to see that RIQ score getting higher and higher. The thing about that RIQ score, if we did a big lot of work in the US in 2018, and we had thousands of teachers when we were developing this use RIQ, they ended up marking over 70,000 pieces of assessment, writing pieces. And as a result of that in the US, they were able to develop some writing norms. So if this student was in the US, we could click on this and they could actually use those norms to see where Anthony was in relation to any other student in grade 6 as an example. we're doing some pilots in Australia where we're looking to do the same thing, where we'll be able to develop writing norms as well. So the teacher gets all that information and to actually be able to see where their students at. So that's cool. That's the teacher looking at that document. What about the student? Well, the thing about the student is that I'm, as a teacher, getting this feedback, getting data to make decisions, kind of focusing where I need to intervene, particularly for my students who are not in my classroom. We are actually online, maybe in an asynchronous environment. I need to think about student motivation. So one of the obstacles to lots of students is actually their motivation to write. Well, with WriteCube, we've actually built in this for students. So we've given the student view is a little bit different than the teacher view. What we've done when the student has WriteCube installed and they're writing in their document, they also get a sidebar. They get their own sidebar that does a couple of things. One, it helps them look at what they're writing. So it keeps a track of their writing bursts, how often they write, for how many words they write in a writing burst. It kind of tracks their best writing bursts. Again, we want them to write more often, for longer, with more words. It also tracks the subject areas they're writing about. So it looks at their keyword vocabulary that puts it in, and also gives them a word cloud. And at the same time, when I've done that assessment for Hayward, when he opens up his document next time, he'll have access to all that information as well. So he's getting some personalized feedback. He's seeing his WriteQ score and his total marks, and he's also seeing his rubric in detail. So if I just go back to here, if I just kind of show you really quickly how that looks. So here's Hayward. So he's got his document. If here's his little WriteQ meter next, he opens it up. As he starts to, even as he's starting to write, and you can see it on the side that I wait for a couple of seconds and it will automatically, then it's indicated I just did a 3-word writing burst today. There are 4 seasons in a year. They are summer, autumn, winter, and spring. So it's another writing burst, and it'll indicate there that it'll go, I just did a 7 writing burst, and I'm starting to use some keywords. So it's actually showing me the keywords I'm using. So it's actually giving me information on the fly. And so I'm actually starting to kind of, it's a bit like nudge theory, where we're actually encouraging students to go, yeah, that's great. You need to write more often, write more words, and they can see what that looks like. They can see what they've been doing over the last week, the last month, the last year, and they can actually get all this data themselves, their word cloud. So they're getting that information. If we've also a bit of gamification to this. If they go back up to their toolbar and go to achievements, we built in badges. So as they do more word bursts, they'll get badges around that. They'll get badges around their vocabulary. They'll get badges around all the number of words they're writing. So again, it's actually motivating them to write. If I go back to here to the stats, the student also gets to see, oh, look, I've got feedback. If I open that up, they'll actually get the feedback. So you can see this is the feedback that I did, and the student automatically gets to see that feedback. They get to see my personalized comment. They get to see their own stats around the WriteQ score up here. They get to see their rubric score. And down the bottom here, they can even see what their rubric score looked like in terms of the different criteria, where they're at. And if they hover over to the next level, they'll also get indicators of where they need to go to. Again, that idea of that nudge theory. So WriteQ is this tool. It's a great tool, and it's become really now a lot of interest, particularly as we've gone to this online environment. But it's the kind of tool that is really important both for a synchronous and asynchronous teaching environment, because it generates the data we need to make decisions for our students, the data that is precise and that we can use to kind of get global insights, but also where we have to intervene. And it also gives that motivation. It's like a Fitbit, a writing Fitbit for our students. As I mentioned, there's the Microsoft Words coming soon. And the other thing that's coming soon is admin dashboard. So not only will a teacher get a dashboard, but a school, or if it's across the whole system, will there also be a system or admin dashboard where you'll be able to see data across a number of students, or if it was a school dashboard across the classroom, so you can start to get the kind of a feel of the data for where you are. Just to let you know, if you wanted to check out RIQ more, you can actually, as a teacher, just go to the Chrome Web Store, because that's where it currently is. Just go to the Chrome Web Store and look for RIQ, WRIQ, and you'll be able to install the extension. If you do that, once the Word version comes out, we'll be able to notify you. If you're interested in a school or beyond, we are actually currently really happy to support school trials. So we're actually looking at term school trials, and we're getting lots of schools interested in trialing RIQ across the whole school environment for all their classes. So I think that was a really quick demo, Fiona, but I think I'm just really excited about RIQ, what it can do for writing assessment.
Oh, absolutely. I love RIQ. And you know, my favorite part is the word cloud. I think that just gives students so much visual information about the type of words they're using. It's really good.
Yeah. So folks, probably generated lots of questions. There's a couple of things we could do. You could actually contact Fiona and I directly, and on the screen there you can see our email addresses and also our usernames, for Twitter. I'm trying to think of which social media account that was for Twitter. So you can by all means reach out to us directly there. You can also, if any of this is of interest and you want to dive deeper, we're happy to spend a bit of time with you. And we've set up a system where you can actually you can book a 15-minute session with either Fiona or I, or Dolly Juru, who is our technical support and customer support person here based in the Brisbane office. And we're happy to spend time. All you need to do is go to texthelper.youcanbook.me, and there you'll be given some options, and you can book a 15-minute slot with us if you want to spend more time. And we're happy to spend time with you. Book a time with us, and we'll Zoom in, we'll team in, we'll meet in, we'll do whatever process we can connect with you as well. And the other,
can I ask a question, Greg? So Tracy's asked, can RIQ be programmed so it's in year levels for New Zealand rather than grade levels? And I mean, my immediate answer is I can't see why not. It would just be changing the.
We're doing that globally because different countries use grade and year. Yep, so that's definitely the case. And of course, the rubric I didn't show you in terms of if you can actually put your own rubric. So there's particular rubrics. So if you were in New Zealand and you had some, I don't know, you're using a particular rubric that you wanted to put into RIQ, and I shouldn't do this, Fiona. But I'll just do it quickly just to show. When you go into your dashboard, you get the chance to create your own rubric, and you can actually create your own. It's got a rubric template in there. When you've created your own rubric, you then can actually have the rubric created, and this is the NAPLAN one that I did, and then you can share that with other people as well. So you can personalize RIQ however you like. Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. Thanks, Greg.
That's okay. And the other thing, another way you can get support from us is we do have a training portal, which is a really great way of actually getting, if you want to spend time. There's lots of people in this new world we're living in currently who are, we're being encouraged to do a bit of PD. Our training portal provides a wonderful PD opportunity for those folks in New South Wales. The read and write for Google Chrome part of our training portal, level 1, is actually has 5 hours of accreditation with NESA. The same with those folks in the ACT, has TQI approved. It's going to get, hopefully soon, for New South Wales, it'll also have Windows, read and write for Windows approval. For anyone else, that mightn't mean much to you, but you just know that the training is of a quality that something like the Major Assessment Authority in New South Wales has given it that accreditation, which is kind of cool. Some people had asked about, and I didn't put the slide in, Fiona, read and write is free for teachers.
Oh,
and
yes.
in the follow-up information, we'll send you, if you don't already have, if you need access to read and write and you're a teacher, we'll send up in the follow-up information, we'll send you access to how you can get the free for teacher for you. If you want to look at it for your school, currently we're actually in this kind of world we're living, which is a topsy-turvy world. We're making read and write available for any school for the whole of this term, regardless, as a free trial for the whole term. So if you kind of want that more information about that, you can contact us here at TextHelp just by sending an email to the team at AsiaPac@texthelp.com. Now, if you missed yesterday's remote learning session webinar, or you're not going to be able to get to tomorrow's or the day after's, that's okay. You can just go to that website, text.help/remote2020, and that will give you all the information about the full webinar series. That's also where you'll be able to get access to the videos that we're recording of these sessions, some of the some handouts, as well as there's something else was going to be there on that website, but all that information, the slides that we'll be using as well.
Yep, the slides, lots of resources, all the quick reference guides. So if you want to share those with your staff about the different tools and how they work. And remember, of course, once you've finished, if you TextHelp YouTube channel is a great place to go and find out more information in little short bursts as well.
Well, we've come to the end, Fiona. Well done. We've only gone 1 minute over time.
Cool. Yay,
it's
us.
been great. I really enjoyed yesterday's session that we did on reading, today on writing. Looking forward to tomorrow, which is further on higher ed. And then Thursday, special session is on, what was it about again, Fiona?
Gee, I don't know, just maths and science, Greg.
Maths and science, fantastic. So hopefully we'll see some of you again in these sessions. If not, we'll see you at one of our other training opportunities, or when we can finally leave our home, we actually might see you out there on the road somewhere. So thank you, everybody for attending, and we look forward to catching up with you again real soon.
No worries.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.